Good morning from Chicago traders. It's 8:01 a.m. on Thursday, the 5th of August, 2021. This is episode number 2045. Thanks for coming back and listening in today, and welcome if you're new. Derivatives trading is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. We're going to bounce right over into the convergent trading pre-market summary sheet. You can see that the earnings are still very, very busy. The market condition or the risk posture overnight is mild risk on. We have equities, equity indices, equity futures climbing, with the Nasdaq pushing towards its all-time high of looks like 15,134 maybe. Something like that. And so that's where that stands. The leaders today, Russell, the small caps, although the Russell's been sideways after pushing higher after the Asian session opened, has been sitting sideways. Russell is a bit of a ways to its all-time highs versus the Nasdaq and the S&P, but it can get there very quickly. Very volatile product. And you could see that that allocation is coming out slightly from the treasuries. The 10-year notes are off 6 big ticks. The bonds are off 4 ticks. The Eurobonds holding pretty well, pretty strong actually, up 44 euro cents. Crypto's coming off this morning after Bitcoin had pushed against the 39,40,000 several times after the pop from a week ago Sunday. And then what's remaining in terms of earnings is AIG after the market. Pre-market, there was just a huge list of releases, and this list is filtered down to 3 billion in estimated revenue or higher because the list is just too long. What are the key elements? Well, tomorrow we have the U.S. employment report, non-farm payrolls. This is very important, of course, and we're kind of holding steady there. This morning we did get the initial jobless claims. Initial jobless claims came in higher, which is worse than expected. 385,000 versus 370,000, and the 4-week average is at 394,000 versus 390,500 expected. Balance of trade also came out slightly worse, a bigger deficit of 75.7 billion versus 74.3 billion expected. The BOE had its interest rate decision this morning, and they're holding steady at 0.1% and keeping their quantitative easing as expected at 875 billion pounds. So that's what's on deck. At 10 o'clock, we have Fed's Waller speech, and that's that. What remains is what's happened in the S&P overnight. Currently, the S&P has traded around 137,000 contracts, which is relatively light. Overnight inventory is 91% long. That's significant. The range is 15 points. We tested down into prior day settlement and have held and took a bounce higher and have held prices above the full session mid and the full session VWAP. We're above the overnight point of control. And what is a balanced profile? So that's where we stand. The overnight point of control at 44.0250. Let me double check. 44.0250. Just updating my cloud levels here real quick while I'm at it. So that's where we stand this morning. Let's take a look at what was expected yesterday versus what we actually got. That's me frozen in time. The primary scenario, the key scenario here was looking for responsive buying into 05 05, 08, but really 05, I expected some resistance there. I was looking for the market to turn over, push into 91 right here. You can see 91 was the single print and a key test area from the prior session. So I was looking for a test at 91, and then I was looking for it to drop to 81, but considering that's quite a bit of range, but on the sell side, it would have been attainable. But looking for 05, looking for a fight at 05, looking to get short against or around the 05. Difficult, pretty tough read yesterday trading this thing. I think the long, I took a long, I think at 04, 03 into that 08 IB high, and then it just rolled over and fell, and I didn't get on the short side as planned. But overall, this thing has did test into the 05. It made a high of 08, and then it came back to 91 later in the session and held to the tick, the single print at 91 and a quarter before it bounced back up and finished sideways to weakish on what was a completely balanced profile. Here's what actually happened. So that's what was expected. Again, targets 91, 81 is the extended target, and here's what actually happened. There's the early push into 05, right? 44.06, and it pulls back to 43.99 and a quarter, holds steady, and then it gets a higher low right in here. I know this looks crowded. A higher low, and then we have a breakout trade into 08. That's where the long was. And then that fails back through, puts in a lower high, and pushes to 94, breaking the initial balance low, the IB low. Pretty deep pullback. You can see the big rotation of 10.5 points. Overall, a very Gaussian, very balanced profile. It's a lot of balance yesterday with a value area of 44. A value area of 44.0350 and down to 43.96, 96.50. So keep an eye on that for today. But completely balanced. The point of control just above the 4400. The point of control shifts our MC point of control up to this area, and inside day to the prior session, which was what was expected. I talked about this yesterday, that we've had this megaphone formation, expecting after Tuesday's range, expecting an inside day with the secondary scenario being a push to 44.15 and then to 22, and that didn't really work out so well. So overall, we ended up with a pretty murky day yesterday, an inside day, but the trade was okay with some clear setups early in the session and then later on. But not much to say. I mean, we stayed around the opening print right here, 44.01, and inside we did not go neutral on the IB. And this morning we're pushing a little bit higher. We pushed a little bit higher with an overnight high of 44.0875. So we pushed this high by 2 ticks, and we're holding steady. We're currently trading at 44.03. So we are opening in the balance here this morning. This is very important to be aware of. Look at this action here. Since the 22nd, we've essentially been in this big box. This is the box right here. Okay, down to 75. Down to 75. So we've been inside of this box for quite some time, and we were making, as I said, we were making kind of a megaphone sort of setup here with an inside day. The market's coiling for a move, and it has an incentive this tomorrow morning with the non-farm payrolls. It has a reason to make a move tomorrow. The overnight session really didn't see very much in terms of new price discovery. Didn't see any. In fact, if you look at the overnight session, it opened, it squeezed higher right away in the Asian session, and then it comes all the way back to settlement. That's this dashed line, and pokes settlement by a little bit. We have what looks like a pretty clear excess tail, and then we get this big push higher on the European Open, and we've stayed above. And look at the cluster that it's created here. We have the overnight point of control. We have the full session VWAP at 02. So the overnight point of control at 0250. The full session VWAP at 0250 as well. We have the full session mid at 4401, all sitting in the space. And compared to yesterday, that's the opening print from yesterday. This is also the MC point of control. The MC point of control, it shifted up from 4390 to 4401, I think, or something like that. And that's where we are. It's just we're in the middle of a very, very, very crowded area currently, with it shifting from being a megaphone formation into what is a triangle, and we seem to be reaching an apex here. So this morning, expecting it to be choppy and looking for a later breakout rebalance before the close for non-farm payroll. So that's where we stand this morning. There's not much else to talk about. I mean, look, we can spend some time on the composite, but you look at the composite chart, you can see that we really didn't accomplish much this week. We have a higher low, lower high so far this week. So the one-time framing on the weekly is intact. In other words, the trend on the weekly time frame, those boxes you see on the screen, is completely intact, with us just trading on top of the point of control from 2 weeks ago, the point of control from last week, which again is 43.91 or so, and we've formed or moved the point of control from there, 43.90 to 44.01, something like that, and we're sitting sideways. So this is a market that is really coiling, but the important thing to note here, and there's some clear boundaries here, there's a boundary at 44.15, 44.22 above, and there's a boundary at 43.65 below, 43.65, and we just put in a higher low on Tuesday at 43.65 and a quarter. And so we have this very, very clear boundary that we're trading in front of, and generally the markets don't stay that way for a while, because as it's trading, more and more people, remember in futures, for every buyer there's a seller. There is no float. Contracts can be created from nothing, and so the more trading that occurs, the more and more and more people that will likely be offsides once it moves away from the area, creating an imbalance and a push. The other thing, other than the fact that it's completely horizontal since we made the all-time high, is the fact that it's not giving up any territory. Currently, the market, given the earnings, given the Delta variant, given all these inputs, is not seeing any threat. So in line with the rest of the action, you got to read this as it's coiling for a continuation higher towards that next key figure, which is the mid-century at 44.50, 4,500. There are some measured moves above, but overall, it's not giving up these prices. So let's take a look at what's expected for today and get you guys moving. Here we go. All right, so stock zones on. Okay, so what are we looking at here? Oops, I moved this too far. What are we looking at here in terms of the action? The expectations for this morning, the primary expectation is a relatively noisy open. I'm looking for it to bounce back and forth. There are no numbers this morning, expecting it to bounce back and forth, and I'm looking for it to test lower. I'm really not looking for it to push past the 4,400 by much. Looking for an impulse higher at some point, an impulse higher to take out the 4,408, and I believe the 4,415 is on deck. I believe the 4,415 is likely to be tested today, and given the consolidation that has occurred here, I'm expecting it to break and have enough energy to push to that 22 and poke through before it comes back off. I'm expecting it to move higher, much more so than a push lower. Again, targets above 44.15 and then 22 are the key areas above there. We have 27.50 and 31 as projected moves. The secondary is an open auction that squeezes higher, pushes the 08 by a bit, and then impulses down. It's not able to maintain higher prices back into the open, and it starts to squeeze into yesterday's low. This is a lower probability, but it's again very likely, and the target again would be 81, which is the last balance price below. Consolidate at the 43.91 again, break that pretty aggressively, which will likely cause a flush that was yesterday's low into 81, and then ping pong in between these two levels here before it bounces back up into the close. This is the second pattern, and look, I've explained periodically I explain why I draw these lines on here and provide this sort of projection, but it's not intended to be kind of a wish list. This is intended to be a visualization, just like athletes do before an event, a visualization of what the market is likely to experience given the narrative and the story that's to the left, given the stock zones and the key areas, the key reference areas, that we have. And the goal here is to be ready for this. Once we visualize it and look at what we're doing, we're going to be ready to execute on it. And that's the part where traders choke, right? Even if they execute, traders will choke on holding the trade to its fruition. So we know key areas above us, 15, 22, these become really important, attainable targets given where we open. And we know what areas below us are really important as well. So good luck today, and I'll catch you tomorrow morning. Don't forget to hit the like button before you head out. And Convergent members, we're doing our group mentoring session today at 1 p.m. Eastern. We have 4 participants. I'll see you in there. Take care.